Grammar is often a concern for both tutors and learners when they're working on writing. Often, tutors and learners believe that grammar is one of the most important aspects of writing that merits a lot of time and attention in tutoring sessions. Many tutors lack confidence about their knowledge of grammar rules and their ability to explain them to their learners. Many learners want to focus on grammar and other mechanics of writing rather than on generating, organizing, and putting their ideas down on the page. In this video, you'll see two experienced tutors discuss how best to work on grammar in tutoring sessions. They'll debunk some common misconceptions about the role of grammar in writing practice and provide guidance on how to approach grammar when working on writing.
Victoria, it has been so long since we got to sit down and talk to each other, so I'm glad we have a chance to do that. And since we're together, I have some questions that tutors keep asking me, and I know we've both been tutoring a long time. So how about if we talk about some of these crazy questions tutors ask, because they need to know and they need to understand. And I think hearing your ideas and putting them together with my ideas, we should be able to have some cool stuff to tell the tutors when they ask these.
Two heads are better than one.
That's right. And great minds think alike.
Yeah.
So one of the things is tutors sometimes, what exactly is grammar?
I know, that is the question of the century, because really, what is it? But it's a system of rules that are particular to a language.
Yeah, it's like that whole system of how things are structured.
Right.
You know, when I think about the systems and the structures, so for what I think about as an example is, in English, we put adjectives before nouns. We say the big brown dog. But if you're in speaking Spanish, if you're a Spanish speaker, you put in their grammar, in their system, you put the adjectives after the noun.
Yes.
So it's, el perro grande y whatever the word for brown is.
Marron.
Yeah.
So that's important, because you have to know where you are and with whom you're speaking to determine what the rules are for the language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they have those rules, and I think sometimes tutors might get too caught up in the rules rather than thinking about the patterns that make up language.
Yes, and the patterns make the difference depending on who you're talking to. We're talking about syntax and semantics. What do the words mean when you use them with different people or in different situations? Because like right now, I'm cool. But around my daughter, I am not cool at all.
Right.
So it completely changes depending on how the words are used. So grammar is fluid. It depends on the language, and it depends on the situation.
Right. So you have to, so I think tutors have to keep that in mind when working with their learners, and maybe instead of focusing on rules, especially if they need to do some grammar correction, is to focus on the patterns they see in their students' writing.
Exactly.
Because I think grammar with speaking and writing, a lot of people speak grammatically.
Yes.
Or, with the correct patterns, but when it comes to writing,
yeah, it's all out the window.
Yeah.
So definitely, writing is a unique creature. And if you can help students when they're writing, they're grammar, then speaking will come more naturally. But yeah, grammar is better to be checked while writing because you can visualize it. Just like those words your and your, if we don't say them explicitly,
Right, they sound the same.
they sound the same, but they're spelled different and they mean different things. So we've got the whole homophone, homograph, happiness going on.
Yeah, sounds alike but different meanings and
Right.
spelled differently.
Spelled differently.
Yeah.
And TEAR, what is that word?
Right.
Well, it depends on how it's being used. So grammar needs to be done in writing and in context
Exactly.
for it to make sense and for you to be able to teach it effectively.
Right, because I know, even if you look at some of the research and just from my own experience, back in the day before I knew better, you have workbook page after workbook page, and they
Yes.
get it all right, but it never shows up in their writing.
Because you can't apply it when you learn it in isolation.
Right.
And it's a living, breathing thing that must be done as a whole beast instead of in separate parts.
Right.
It's more whole to parts than parts to whole.
Yeah, and using the student's own writing.
And
Because
using the student's own.
each student makes their own unique errors.
Yes.
So why teach them something that they don't really need when you can look and say, oh, well, here's something they're doing wrong.
Yes.
So let me mark that somehow and talk about that with the student and have them practice doing it.
And practice. And that's the most important thing. Practice the one thing which they're making the most mistakes with.
Right. Don't try and fix everything.
Oh my goodness.
And,
You
I've
can't.
had tutors. I've had to really stress that too. Like, no, not pick one thing.
Yeah. Because then students begin to feel that they're being picked on.
And they feel overwhelmed.
Or they can do nothing right and they may as well give up.
Yeah.
And we never want our students to feel that way.
We sure don't. Speaking, of grammar and kind of what it is, and it's the big picture, but I think sometimes tutors need to know some specific things to be aware of, and also how to fix them. So things like using the right pronoun or using too many pronouns sometimes, and you don't know what they refer back to. Parts of speech. Subject verb agreement. Sometimes they use the single subject and a verb that's plural. Word order sometimes, and we just have that, and that's a pattern. Like I was talking about the adjectives.
Yes, pattern errors.
Yeah, and possessives.
Oh, that's the big one.
Oh, if I see one more sign with a apostrophe in it when they mean plural, I will go stark raving mad.
Yes. It's a big pet peeve. I was working with Amanda, and my student, Amanda, she was having problems with a and an.
Okay, I've had some learners with that with that issue.
A apple. I want a apple. It's like, oh, you don't hear that? That's not quite right.
Yeah.
These are some of the errors that Amanda made with a and an.
All right.
And
Yeah. So what kind of strategy did you use to help her? Kind of like correct those errors.
We used guided self-correction. So that is where I identify places where there are errors.
Oh.
She then finds the error. Now, I don't tell her what the error is or where exactly. It's just line by line. She picks out, oh, there's one error here. So she went and found the one error.
Okay.
And that way, she learns to have confidence in herself and rely on herself to be able to correct and see the errors.
So you marked wherever there was an an error, and then she had to find that, and that's really cool. I might steal that idea.
Oh, you can have it. I got it free.
That's great.
One of the things I like to do with my students on a daily basis is a little opening activity that we call mugs. This is where we look at mechanics, usage, grammar, and spelling, but not in isolation, but as a unit. So
Okay.
what I will do is write a sentence on the board. No punctuation, no capitalization, sometimes I mix up the spelling, and then they have to write the sentence exactly the way I wrote it.
Okay.
Then rewrite it again, revise it. Then, as a group, we edit. And this is a strategy that shows the steps, even of a good writing process, because you've got your sloppy copy, your first rough, and then you have the actual revision. And after you revise, then you edit, and you get all the extra little mistakes and errors. And we talk about why the errors were made and how to change them and when would you use them. And we have organic conversations
Okay.
about grammar, but in context. And one of my students told me that made the biggest difference, and he was older than I am. And he said this made the biggest difference. He had struggled with it for most of his life. He didn't even want to do English because of the struggles that he had, and this made the difference. But it's a little snippet. We try not to spend more than 15 minutes on it
Okay.
as an opener.
So short and sweet.
Short and sweet.
Kick you off the session, and I can see that. So it's like modeling revision, even though it's not their own piece. They're practicing doing some revision,
Yes.
and so that they can get in the hang of revising.
Yes.
And when they get to their piece, it's like, remember how we did that on the. So
Exactly.
you need to do some of those revision things in your piece as well.
Exactly. And spelling and seeing
Right.
other people make errors. Also, it's almost like a portfolio because they keep each one on.
Oh.
Each one is dated, and they can write more than one on a page. And the unique thing that I like is when they do the editing, not the revision, but the editing.
Yeah.
I have them use a colored pencil. So as they go throughout their notebook, they should have fewer and fewer colored pencil marks for their editing. So that's one of my favorite things to do.
I like that. Yeah, and I like with the colors, because the fewer and fewer, probably at the beginning you start, right, and then look, there's no left.
Very little, yes.
That is a really good idea. Yeah.
And everybody has errors, and everybody gets to. So, and they can see that, and they don't feel like they're alone or they're the dumb one.
Right. Right.
Because some people, they fake it so well. They write and they get done and they're like, doo, 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 doo. And then everybody else feels like, oh my goodness, I must be stupid because I'm struggling. And what really happened is they wrote it down and they weren't even trying.
It sounds like a concrete strategy, which I know is important to have that, and hands-on, so you're not telling you're
Right.
you're there and they're actually doing something, and
See here,
it gives
do.
them some variety, right? See here, do. And I know as far as the concrete stuff, it's and especially being very specific and explaining things very simply works very well too.
Yes.
For English language learners.
Absolutely.
Who are learning English, who are coming from a different grammar, like
Yes.
we talked about, and now they have to learn this new system.
Right.
So,
And I also do it on the board. So they have their own copy. Everyone has an individual copy, and then we correct a class copy on the board. So everyone has to take the marker, and everyone has to go up and do corrections. And what I like to tease them, if you're first, you can pick the easiest things because we always leave off end punctuation. So they can pick the easiest things. But if you hesitate,
you have to do the hard things.
Yeah. So it makes people
I like
a little
that.
bit more active or enthusiastic about volunteering.
So I know that in addition to tutoring, you teach a small group that you're using that with. But I could see me using that with one-on-one too.
Absolutely. I could see Amanda doing very well with that.
Yeah, yep.
Because sometimes she tends to be shy, or she second guesses herself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that would be a really good strategy to use one-on-one with her.
Yeah, because I think, one of our main things as tutors is not only to help our students become better writers, but to build their confidence too.
Absolutely. Because if they can do A and they feel confident, then they're going to be less reluctant to do the next challenging thing.
Right, they have that success.
And they see themselves as capable.
Right, right. So mugs sounds, that's something else I'm stealing from you. Okay. I know I like to do too with learners, do some puzzle things. Mm-hmm. I know I have one guy who loves word search puzzles. So we'll take words from that he's identified, words from something that we're reading, and I'll use those words to make word search puzzles with, or if we're working on short vowel sounds in the reading part, I'll mix and the word search so he can get practice that way, which is more reading than writing, but it's still kind of the puzzle thing. So some multi-sensory things and color coding. I did color coding things.
I love color coding. Remember, Amanda and I did color coding with the application, learning how to fill out an application.
I remember you talked about, how did you use color coding? I remember you told me you were going to work on the application, but how did you?
We highlighted areas that she knew.
Okay.
The answers, things that she knew the answer to.
Okay.
We highlighted questions that she understood well, and we highlighted also words with which she was unfamiliar. So we highlighted those words, wrote them down on a flashcard, and that way she had time to go back, look at the definition. But she identified those areas on that application that would be either problematic or easy for her.
Okay, so different colors then?
Different colors for each area.
For the knew it, color for the going to have trouble with it, and then a color for some words she wanted to practice, maybe spelling or definitions. And
absolutely.
I like that, that's
for visual learners, that's extremely useful.
Right, those different colors.
Right, and the kinesthetic learners to actually do it.
Right, the highlighting.
Yes.
And writing those words on the index cards,
Yes.
Yep. That's good. I like that.
So we got all the modalities going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I like colored markers too. So.
I love colored markers. And colored pencils.
Colored pens. Like them.
Yes.
Some ways that I use color too, you're using the highlighters. I use the highlighters as well. Sometimes to highlight parts of words that I want to draw a learner's attention to.
Yeah.
So if it's a word ending, which sometimes get left off in the writing because they don't hear them or they don't think. So I'll use the highlighter to make those endings really jump out.
Yes, like
at them.
ED.
Especially ED.
Because like the word supposed, people don't often say supposed.
Nope, they say
suppose. And they write suppose. So using a color to highlight that's great because it makes your eyes, it draws your eyes to it.
Right to that ending.
And it makes your attention so that you don't miss it anymore.
Right. And another thing I love are Post-it notes. Like I have a picture of the inventor of the Post-it note next to my desk.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I do. Art Fry. I don't even know his name. So, but I'll, write word parts or and can move them around.
Oh, I like that. I think one of the ways we can use the Post-it notes, and especially the different colors. For example, Amanda has Google says is okay. It is a big ball of frozen stuff. So we can cover stuff.
Okay.
And we can either use it as a synonym activity to find, as a vocabulary builder, to find other words for stuff.
Okay.
Especially since there's a pattern of her using that particular word. Or we can say, hey, yellow Post-it notes are for nouns. Can you find another noun to fill in that space? And then we can move it around and identify other nouns and use it in different places.
Okay. That makes good sense. And then so like if you were going to work on the adjectives, that might be pink. So frozen, what's another adjective? Or where's some other adjectives? Put a post-it note on all the adjectives or stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, because it doesn't have to be frozen. It could be fiery.
Right.
And that would be a descriptor. But because it's in front of a noun, fiery would be an adjective.
Yeah, and stuff is pretty,
vague. Yes.
Vague. So, not only is she learning some parts of speech, she's also building her vocabulary. It's going to make her writing so much better because she'll get used to thinking of better words to use for what she's trying to say. That's good. Well, yeah. They work too for sentence combining activities.
Oh, yes.
You're familiar with that.
They really do.
Post-it notes or cutting things up and moving around different colors for parts of speech. So if you want to call attention to the conjunctions you're using for the sentence combining, make those a different color. Make your nouns a different color so that they can kind of manipulate things in a good way, and also be aware of kind of what things they're manipulating.
That's beautiful. There's some clear transparent tape. It's the non-sticky kind.
Oh, okay.
And you could have those at different colors. Like for the word run. The word run, depending on where it's used or how it's used, it could be a noun, it could be a verb. And so by using those clear colored tapes, you can color the same word, move it around, and make it...
Like in the student's piece of writing?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
Especially when you clip it up and you move it around in different parts of the sentence.
Right.
I run. I hit a run.
Cool.
Yeah. My tears run down my face.
Yeah.
So how is it being used? Well, that will help them see visually what part of speech, whether it's being used as a noun or verb.
That's awesome. And once they kind of get the hang of that, then they can get the tape and stick it on themselves.
Yes.
That's kind of an assessment for, do they understand that?
Exactly.
Nice.
And it's totally reusable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. One thing I found, Victoria, is that it's helpful it was helpful for me, and I always recommend this to other tutors, is that they should have some kind of a resource for themselves to help them teach the grammar. So I don't know everything about grammar, and sometimes I have questions like, where does that comma go?
Right.
So it's a reference for me, so I can make sure I'm guiding my student in the right way. So I think it's important for tutors to have that reference, for them to find one that they like, that they understand.
With. Yes.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. And I know there's there's a lot of them out there,
There's
some
so
better
many.
than the other, and some have some good recommendations as far as playing into the rhythm of language, the musicality of language, lists of things that would be helpful,
Right.
or just different things that would help a tutor to teach those grammar lessons in a better way, an easier way. Because I know sometimes tutors don't know that grammar themselves; they're unsure,
and they feel insecure because they're not teachers, they haven't been trained to do that,
right?
And they think that the misnomer, the misapprehension is that teachers know everything, and good teachers don't know everything, but they know how to get information.
That's
to
right.
help them to do things. And that's what tutors need to know as well, that they can find the information that they need, and especially if they find a good resource, they can use it.
That's right. That's right. Whatever that resource is, and it'll help them to develop some activities and strategies and answer questions.
Absolutely. One of the things I also like to do, especially when I'm meeting a learner for the first time, is get a writing sample from them.
Yep.
But not something that I contrived, but tell me a little bit about your family, or what is important to you, or if you could go anywhere in the world, where would you like to go, and have them express themselves in writing, and then use that writing as a way to establish a pattern and to look for specific things that we can work on grammatically. That is a focus, and we work on that thing over a period of time.
Okay, so give them a little prompt so they have something to respond to, and
Yes.
And yeah, I like that.
So we get to know each other, plus I get to know what their needs are as far as writing
Yeah.
and grammar.
I did a thing when I was teaching study strategies in college. I would get a writing sample, and my question would be, "You are here," and I'd have a big circle around where the campus was, and it's in the city. You know, why are you here? What do you hope to achieve? And just some questions like that. So.
Yeah. Or how do you get from here to where you want to go?
Yeah, that's another good one too.
Yeah.
I like that. So, you know, we work with these tutors, and I've run into tutors who just insist that grammar is the same. Teaching grammar is the same thing as teaching writing.
Oh, no.
and it's so hard to dissuade them of that. So, you know, what I do a lot of times, I'll sit down with them and I'll explain the difference between grammar and between the ideas on the page.
Yes.
And how grammar is really last, and it's a process. It really is, to kind of get them to change that mindset. I mean, are there things that you do it, or you would do if you were confronted with a tutor who says, I must teach them that they can't write unless they know all the grammar rules?
Well, I insist that grammar rules are in flux. The rules depend on how the words are being used. And sometimes poor grammar is excellent writing. Sometimes you have a more effective writing by using something that may not be grammatically correct. So that's why writing and grammar are two distinct beings. So finding out what the reader or the writer does, and then using that information in context will help with grammar far more
in
than
context.
teaching each individual thing. Because inside their head, okay, I before E except after C, or using pronouns and antecedents. They, the student, they. They wouldn't know that, or they wouldn't be able to do that unless they write it out and can see it, as opposed to just talking about it and saying, oh, they is a pronoun, it talks about more than one person. By itself, okay, yeah, but when you put it in a piece of writing, then you have a whole completely different creature. So,
especially the student's own writing.
Especially the
because that's something
writing.
they care about. I care about this piece of writing, so I want it to look good. So I'm going to pay attention when you're explaining this.
Yes, and the theirs, the different theirs, you need to be able to see that THEIR is different from THERE.
Yeah, and how that's used in your piece of writing.
In your piece of writing specifically.
Yeah. So it's a process, but most of them come around and go, oh yeah, I guess we don't. I guess writing is more than.
Yeah, because you can know what a pronoun is, but if you don't know how to use it, it means nothing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then sometimes the same thing happens with a learner. I've had a couple learners who said, well, I want to learn all the grammar rules. It's like, well, yeah. I mean, what do you do? Again, I think it's that explanation of, well, here's grammar, but here's writing, and here's the difference, and grammar's a teeny part of. And writing is mostly your ideas,
right?
And that's what's important. And we'll do grammar.
We'll get there.
And have you run into a student like that who?
All the time, people want to direct their own. They want to be captains of their own ships,
and that's understandable.
And it's understandable, But they also need to know what the waters are. We know the waters. Let me tell you how to traverse them.
Right. I like that. I like that analogy. Another thing tutors ask me, how much time should I spend on, should I do the whole, and I was like, don't do the whole, please, no, not the whole time. I tell them, like, right around 20 minutes top, yeah.
When you're talking about drilling grammar, think of it as a dentist drilling in your tooth. How long would you want that dentist drilling in your mouth?
And would you want the dentist to drill to begin with? So throw that drilling stuff out there. I like it. I'm gonna have to remember that, the dentist thing, because that's
as much as necessary, but as little as possible.
So I know one special case, and I'm not real well versed in this, but I'm getting better. We've had some learners come in that went and tutored that really haven't had any formal schooling. These are learners from other places who are not native English language speakers. They haven't had really any formal schooling in the countries they came from.
Okay.
And no formal settings for that school for any little bits of schooling they may have had. So they're coming in with some not being able to read and write well in their own language, and then and then trying to learn English.
The most difficult language.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've run into any learners like that, but it's I know in talking to some folks who know more about this than I do, they've made some really good suggestions as far as and some things we do with our learners that we no drills, like the dentist, and don't not the names of parts of speech, because that's just
but using them effectively
concepts to them, but learning how to use the language.
Right.
So I know one thing that is recommended is to use the student's own words. So language experience, and we do that sometimes with our reading students who are low level. So use the student's own words, scribe for them, and then find one thing to work with them. So maybe it's the S's at the ends of words, so make plural. So use their words, because they know those words because they're using
language.
them. Right, they're using those words, and then do some activities using what they've written. One thing might be to work some of the nouns from their story. You don't have to call them nouns. Some of the words on a card, and then make a card with an S on it, so they can say, here's the noun,
the boy,
boy,
and then an
S. Then S, boys, book, and then put the S. Now you've got books. So some activities, very simple, concrete, and just make sure it's all from what their oral language, the story that you wrote. So I think that's some good advice, and
I think
at least
so too.
A starting point for those of us who might have a student who's in that situation.
Exactly.
Well, I'm so glad we got to get together and chat, and I got some great ideas from you.
And I got some great ideas from you.
Great. Well, I will catch up with you later.
Okay, take care until then.
Thanks.
You've seen two experienced tutors provide guidance on how best to approach grammar when working on writing activities. They stress that it's more important for tutors and learners to concentrate on the message rather than on grammar and other mechanics of writing. They suggest focusing on the content of the writing and encouraging more writing. They recommend working on grammar in short mini lessons and in the context of the learner's own writing.